Okay, I'll go then. I would like to thank the organizers of this conference, and particularly my friends Paul and Luis, to allow me to present this talk virtually. I am sorry that I cannot be with you, but I hope that this opportunity for giving a talk on this very interesting subject will generate some useful conversation. The title I have chosen for my brief talk is U.S. Foreign Policy and Asia, Peace and Prosperity, or Instability and Crisis. Now, let me immediately add that it doesn't have to be so stark a choice. We all know that in the real world, most of the times we muddle through. And it is quite likely that we will muddle through before we actually get on stable ground. But I think some clarity would be useful, and that's all I'm going to offer. So the question is, should the US reassess its grand strategy, and as part of this reassessment, change its policy perspective strategically in Asia? So I will just offer the beginnings of some serious analytical arguments, nothing more. But I hope that this will lead to further reflections and launch us on the way to achieve the twin related goals of global peace and economic prosperity. US policy towards Asia is really much more than just mere regional policy. As the largest continent on our planet, to a large extent, Asia holds the key towards the global future, for better or for worse. Therefore, US relations with Asia are crucial for the global future. It is my hope that wise reciprocal policies will open the door towards a better planetary future. The end of Cold War led to what some have called the unipolar moment. US interventions in Asia and elsewhere since the end of Cold War have led some prominent scholars in international relations and security studies to question this strategy. For example, referring to US interventions in this period, Professor Christopher Lane remarks thoughtfully, few raised their eyebrows about Panama, 1989, or Haiti, 1994-2004. After all, the United States has a track record of wielding a big stick to maintain stability in its own backyard. But the two wars with Iraq, 1991-2003, the US military interventions in the Balkans, Bosnia in 1995, Kosovo in 1999, and the invasion of Afghanistan do stand out. And then he goes on to add, had the Cold War not ended, it is doubtful that the United States would have fought these wars. Why did the Cold War's end lead to a new wave of US expansion? That's easy. After the Soviet collapse, the United States stood head and shoulders above the rest of the world, militarily and economically. The United States, moreover, was imbued with an expansive conception of its world role and its interests. By removing the only real check on US power, the Soviet Union's demise presented the United States with the opportunity to use its capabilities to exert more control over, to shape the international political system, and simultaneously to increase its power. When the risks of doing so appear low and the potential rewards appear high, states with lots of power usually succumb to the temptation to use it. In the years since the Cold War, the United States has extended its strategic reach because it had the motive, means, and opportunity to do so. To the historically informed and sensitive observers, these events require deep reflection, whether one agrees with the exact characterization of Professor Lane or not. Like Great Britain at the end of World War I, US today is no longer a creditor nation. You can tell that I'm an economist because I immediately focus on these kind of facts. In fact, the US is the biggest debtor nation in recorded history. Since the financial crisis and the Great Recession, the developed parts of the world economy have been in deep economic and social crisis. Although the BRICS and some other developing economies show healthy signs of growth, the worsening of wealth and income distribution in developing and developed countries alike are destabilizing trends. Indeed, signs of a looming crisis are everywhere. Under these circumstances, the order of the day should be seeking multilateral solution to economic and political security problems. But Asia does present special problems for the US. It is not only geographically vast, it is also enormously complex with a rich and complicated history. We can simplify, perhaps oversimplify, by dividing Asia into 4 regions: the Middle East and Central Asia, East Asia, Southeast Asia, and South Asia. Even in this simplified geopolitical and geoeconomic scheme, I cannot hope to do justice to all the problems in all the sub-regions. I will quickly mention the most salient problems in the 3 other regions before focusing a bit more on East Asia. But before turning to this, let me point out some hopeful recent trends in rethinking US diplomatic history, especially in the region of East Asia. Beginning at least with the distinguished historian Charles S. Myers' Marking Time, the historiography of international relations, other scholars such as Sally Marks and Christopher Thorne attracted the attention of responsible historians to the parochialism, lack of linguistic and area trading, and thus the inability of the US IR and history scholars to enter the texture of a foreign society. This is from Thorne, 1988. Partly as a response to these challenges, a group of scholars, such as Odd Ernie Westet, Chen Jian, Jiang Zhai, Xu Guangzhang, Michael Sheng, Frederick Logeval, Mark Bradley, and Yukiko Koshiro, have joined an earlier distinguished group that includes the likes of Akira Irie, Bruce Cummings, and Robert J. McMahon. Our own distinguished colleague, Professor Suisheng Zhao, has made many important contributions in the areas of Chinese nationalism and Chinese foreign policy. Thus, the practical policymakers today in the US, if they so desire, do have a lot of reliable analytical scholarly sources to go to, particularly with respect to East Asia. With this background for East Asian policy challenges in mind, I will now turn to the sub-regions in Asia. The main problems in Middle East are, without exaggeration or dramatization, maintaining peace, distributing the gains from resource development to the people in the region and elsewhere in developing countries. Here, the major initiatives will have to come from the people in the region themselves. But the US can play the role of a facilitator and honest broker while protecting its own legitimate national interest. In South and Southeast Asia, the problem is not so much to establish democracy as to deepen it. In the process, regional cooperation will need to be enhanced a great deal. Here, the ASEAN is a good example, but the SAARC in South